Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and viewers joining us, welcome to this panel discussion on the framework of the IGAD summit held here in Djibouti on June 12, 2023. I am Dini Musa and I will be your host for this insightful discussion. Joining us today are two distinguished guests who will shed light on the important work of IGAD and its role on the region. First, we have Mr. Noor Mohammed Sheikh, who is the spokesperson of the Executive Secretary of IGAD. Welcome, Mr. Noor.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we are also honored to have with us Ambassador Gelle Idris Umar, the Director of Multilateral Relations at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Welcome, Ambassador Gelle.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome. So first, I think that we should start off by you, Mr. Noor, the spokesperson of the Executive Secretary of IGAD himself. Could you provide us with a consequence explanation of IGAD and its primary objective in the region?
Thank you so much again for having us. IGAD was formed in 1986 by the leaders of the region, and this country, Djibouti, played a very important role in the establishment of this important organization. At the time when it was formed, it was to deal with issues related to drought. From 1974 to 1984, this region faced serious environmental crisis that led to famine and also environmental degradation, food insecurity, loss of livelihood, because most of the region the population rely on livestock.
Exactly.
So this affected not only the environment, but people's livelihoods, people's lives, the health situation. So the leadership of the region tried to respond to this in their respective countries, but they thought that given that the situation was affecting the entire region, it's best if they work collectively and harmonize their approach, their policies to respond to these disasters. And so 86 it was formed and the leadership agreed that it should be headquartered in Djibouti, and we are very grateful to the government and the people of Djibouti for hosting this organization from its inception. And then in 1996, the organization was revitalized because the region was again also facing other challenges, but also opportunities.
Exactly.
So some of the challenges were, related to conflict in the region, but also the leaders felt that, okay, why don't we explore regional integration, economic integration, for instance, peace and security in terms of, mediation, response to health, etc. And so the organization was revitalized in 1996, and here we are today dealing with all these issues in a more coordinated manner.
Exactly. So the Horn of Africa has faced numerous challenges, as you mentioned, including conflicts, as you mentioned, humanitarian crisis and migrations. What role does IGAD play in addressing these situations or crises specifically?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So yes, so the organization was established to deal initially with the humanitarian situation, the drought situation at the time, and a lot has been achieved, in terms of coordinating efforts. For instance, when drought hits a country, people tend to move across borders.
Exactly.
So member states, take that into consideration, that their movement of cross-border communities. Also the health situation of people who are affected because of this. So the organization tries to, have harmonized policies, but also mobilize resources so that we respond to this. For instance, let me give you an example. When the COVID situation hit the region last year, IGAD was the first regional economic community of the African Union to have a strategy on how to respond to the COVID situation. And We mobilized resources, 60 million initially, and we reached our response reached 1.9 million people in the region.
1.9 million
1.9 million people,
Okay.
including refugees and other vulnerable communities. So also when it comes to refugees, for instance, and this country hosts a lot of refugees. But there are times when member states did not know how to really have a common approach to hosting refugees.
Yeah.
So in 2016, Kenya had a bit of an issue with Somali refugees, but the region came together and said that look, this is how we should all approach on how we welcome refugees, and then also, of course, those who are hosting them. And so we have all these programs within the organization that deals with all this humanitarian, whether it is drought response, COVID response to health situation. And coming back to the issue of conflict, I think the track record of our organization compared to other organizations globally is excellent. And I think it's the central role that IGAD plays in conflict resolution has been acknowledged by the United Nations, by the African Union. And I will give you several examples. For instance, the Ethiopia conflict that broke out a couple of years ago, IGAD played a crucial role that led to the signing of the permanent cessation of hostilities on 2nd of November 2022 in South Africa. We, of course, coordinated efforts with the African Union, but the IGAD leadership, the executive secretary of IGAD, Dr. Workane, was one of the key architects of that agreement. When the Sudan situation broke out on the 15th, it was very unfortunate. The IGAD leaders were the first to convene. On the 16th, they convened, and they appointed 3 seasoned, experienced heads of states. President Ismail Omar Gele of Djibouti, President Salva Kiir of South Sudan, and President William Ruto of Kenya. And these 3 leaders are again meeting here to give us guidance on how we are going. But we were the first, to call for cessation of hostilities and protection of civilians, and for therefore to be a humanitarian corridor so that those people who are in need can be safely and reached in an orderly manner. And these leaders have been in touch with the leadership in Sudan, both sides of the conflict, impressing upon them the need for ceasefire, sustainable ceasefire that will ultimately lead to resolution of the conflict.
So as you mentioned, whenever there's a problem in Africa or in the region, IGAD seems to be that role, that hero that strives for unity and strives to harmonize all countries together, and just to let go of problems and just be one, because with unity comes first. That's a good point. So you mentioned Sudan, and I would like to pause on that situation a bit. The current situation in Sudan and the virtual role of IGAD in conflict resolution. We would appreciate your perspective on the ongoing events and their consequential implications.
Thank you for that question. I can tell you for sure that Sudan will be one of the agenda items at tomorrow's summit.
Absolutely.
And we are lucky that it's in Djibouti, because the president of Djibouti is part of that troika, the 3 presidents that the summit designated and delegated with this situation. And the president here has been playing a very, very important role, not just within the leadership of IGAD. He was at an Arab League summit last month, I think, or where he articulated regional concerns. He's been talking to other leaders, the leaders of France, UK, UN, impressing upon them that there has to be a coordinated solution to the Sudan crisis. And Djibouti was the first country to open its airspace for diplomats and others to be evacuated. So in terms of our response, it is unprecedented when you look for 3 sitting presidents. Normally it is retired presidents who try and engage, but for 3 sitting presidents, to accept this assignment, and they have other things to do. They are running countries, they are running countries, but then for them to take up this challenge, it's unprecedented in diplomacy of mediation. And really, we are very grateful that the 3 presidents and President of Djibouti is playing that crucial role. And today, for him to be generous enough to convene his colleagues in this city to discuss other issues, but among those issues, the situation in Sudan.
In light of the summit that is being held or will be held tomorrow, what are your impressions of its organizations, and what impact do you believe it will have on the region as a whole?
So in terms of organization, again, we are very grateful to the government and people of Djibouti, in terms of organization, of the venue itself. We've got a very, world-class venue for the summit, with all the facilities, all the conference facilities, security. In terms of, protocol, the government has put the disposal of, its highly experienced protocol people to cater for the summit participants, security in terms of accreditation of the media, and working very closely with IGAD to make sure that this summit is a success. And of course, the summit is not just about people coming together. There are agenda items that are of importance to the citizens of the people, you and I. So the leaders have this in mind. How can they, better respond to the humanitarian situation? How can they better affect, regional integration? And this country is a very good example. I mean, if you look at Djibouti, for instance, the port of Djibouti is used by the region. The road network of Djibouti is used by the region. The fiber optics that Djibouti is providing, in terms of, Djibouti's also progressive diaspora policy. So really, there is a lot for the region to learn from each other. And I think this summit being held here, there are these very important of course, agenda items, but Djibouti also as a country has a lot to share, and also the most peaceful country, in the region. And so we are glad that this is taking place.
Above all, it's the unity is the objective. Above all.
Absolutely.
That was very insightful. Thank you, Mr. Noor. And now let's turn our attention to Ambassador here with us, Gale Idris Umar, the Director of Multilateral Relations at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ambassador Gale, as the Director of the Multilateral Relations, you have a unique perspective on the role of the Ministry and its collaboration with IGAD. We would be delighted to hear from you your insights on various aspects of regional cooperation in the challenges faced. So, if you're ready, we shall begin. All right. Djibouti has been an active member of IGAD since its inception. How has Djibouti benefited from its participation in IGAD, and how has it contributed to the organization's objectives?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulul Adi. First of all, thank you for having me, and I would like to thank the RTD of Djibouti to invite us for this very important roundtable discussion in a very timely manner, which is just a day before the 14th summit of the IGAD, Head of State and Government. Let me underline ordinary summit. That's very important. If I may come back to your questions, as you just asked, indeed, Djibouti is an active member of IGAD, and since the inception of IGAD, Djibouti has both benefited from its participation in the organization, contributed to its objectives. I will try to highlight some of the main objectives that Djibouti has benefited from.
Please.
If I start with the economic integration, which is Djibouti is always mentioned as an example, the integration we have with Ethiopia. IGAD also promotes the economic integration among member states. And Djibouti, being a very strategic country, the crossroad of Africa, Middle East, and Asia, has leveraged its participation in IGAD to enhance economic cooperation and connectivity. It has also benefited from initiatives such as the Djibouti Regional Integration Project, which aims to improve transport infrastructure, trade facilitation, and promoting Djibouti as a regional hub. It's very important that a regional hub for what? For trade and logistics. And also Djibouti, also as he mentioned, we play a very, very important role in peace and conflict resolution. As you know, Djibouti is a very active participant in IGAD's peace and conflict resolution. We have contributed to AMISOM, that's today called ATMIS. Yes, Djibouti is one of the most active country in that troops, which aims to stabilize and rebuild Somalia. Djibouti also is involved in this mission, has not only contributed to regional peace and stability, but also bolstered its own security by mitigating the spillover effects of conflicts in neighboring countries. That's what's happening today, unfortunately. And if I just close my remarks on the humanitarian side, which is very important as for Djibouti. Djibouti has been engaged in IGAD's humanitarian initiatives by organizing, coordinating the efforts to address humanitarian crises, including drought, famines, and displacement. So as you know, Mr. Noor, Djibouti is a member that has participated in a joint effort to provide humanitarian assistance to affect population within the region, and demonstrating solidarity and support for the neighboring countries facing crisis, like for instance, our brother from Ethiopia or from Somalia. So there is a huge hub of WFP in Djibouti, and that's where everything goes from here. And the government is fully engaged to facilitate that movement of trucks, saving lives in Ethiopia. And the president have give straight instruction to make everything at ease so that those lives can be saved. That's, if I may resume a little bit for your questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. As you mentioned earlier, Djibouti is well known for its strategic location, connecting Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. How does Djibouti leverage its geographical advantage to promote regional cooperation and economic integration within the framework of IGAD?
Thank you. And as you know, Djibouti is engaged in collaboration with the other member states of IGAD to address different challenges, especially the one effectively, and advance its key priorities in areas such as security, economic integration, just as I said earlier, infrastructure development, very important, and climate change adaptation. If I try to speak a little bit of the climate change.
Please do, please.
Environment, Djibouti recognizes the impact that has the climate change on and environment challenges on the region. The ability and development. It actively engages within IGAD to address climate change adaptation, sustainable resource management, and environmental protection. Djibouti, we collaborate with other members to develop strategies, initiatives to mitigate the effects of climate change and promote sustainable development. So we actively engage and collaborate with other members through various mechanisms, such as high-level meetings. We're always very active in the high-level meetings, as you know, Mr. Noor. And in the working groups, in technical committees and joint projects. We also host, like we are doing tomorrow, workshops, training programs, capacity building initiatives, all that organized by IGAD. Djibouti also actively participate.
Summits too,
Yes, yes. So we furthermore actively share information, not especially the intelligence information among IGAD member states. We do the best practices with other member states, foster regional collaboration, and we work closely with IGAD's specialized agencies and centers program, including those focusing on security, drought and disaster management, trade facilitation, and to exchange knowledge and expertise. So we send our experts to one of the IGAD's members, and we also welcome our brothers and sisters from the region to have their experience.
So it's a two-way, huh?
Yes, of course. That's why we are this integration.
Exactly. How would you describe the significance of the IGAD summit being held here in Djibouti? What impact do you anticipate it would have on the region, and could you shed some light on the event and the key issues that will be addressed during the summit? What outcomes or arrangements or agreements do you hope to achieve, or do you hope we achieve as a whole through this summit?
Thank you. This is a very good question, actually. If I try to give you how things are happening now, all the arrangement and the preparation of the summit are in very good trends. Everything is going well as planned. And regarding the significance, I personally believe that the summit is taking place in a very good timely manner. Yeah. Because Djibouti has hosted this summit, and when you look what's happening, this is the exact timing for Djibouti to show the role it plays in the region. Even though we are not that visible, but we are really there. So today is a timely manner summit to show the role of Djibouti and especially what's happening in our region and in our neighboring countries. Yeah. So I therefore strongly believe that this summit will be a very historical one, not only for IGAD, but particularly for Djibouti. Yeah. So if I go for the summit discussion and the addressing key, it will be addressing the key regional issues and the mutual concern of all members. But it will be focusing on the current political and security situation in Sudan. That's the main subject that the leaders will be talking. And the other point that we'll be raising according to the agenda will be the adoption of the new treaty, because the treaty has been revised, discussed at the expert level, at the ministerial level, and finally we hope our leaders will be adopting it. So the outcome will be a communique that will be giving what the leaders of IGAD has agreed on the situation of Sudan, and that they have adopted their own treaty. That's the outcome we're expecting. Yeah. Am I right?
No, you are very right. Just to add on to what Ambassador has said, all the leaders have confirmed. Some have already arrived here, others are arriving today. This evening, which is really by itself show of solidarity with the people of the region, with the people of
and the readiness of the presidents, like to come up here and be ready, you know, that also tells you something, you know. Exactly.
It says a lot, exactly. Yeah. But just also to come back to, you know, the role of Djibouti, Ambassador is very right, you know, the troop contributing countries, in Somalia, for instance, most of them, the majority are actually IGAD countries, you know, it's Djibouti, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya. They feel so much about, you know, the situation there that they are willing to put men in the front line too. But also just to come back to the other question that you asked, when you look at the refugee policies, this country has one of the most advanced. You know, we have a Djibouti Declaration on Education, for instance, refugee education, that was signed here in this city. I think it was in 2018. In Djibouti, you know, refugees can go to normal schools, access normal, you know, services. And there is a refugee law that was passed that even allow refugees to go and engage in employment and gainful employment. So we are again grateful to Djibouti for that. The other question that probably I should have responded to is how IGAD is responding to climate change. We have a center in Nairobi, an IGAD climate center that not only serves IGAD countries, but also Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi in giving early warning information so that, you know, member states and communities can respond in good time to, you know, situations of climate change, drought.
That was very insightful. One last question. Ambassador Gale.
Yes.
We've mentioned Sudan a lot here as the director of the bilateral relations, and in the context of the ongoing events in Sudan. Could you please elaborate on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs' role in supporting IGAD's conflict resolution efforts? How do you perceive the effectiveness of these efforts thus far?
I think the question of Sudan, Mr. Noor has already a lot elaborated on it, but Djibouti, as you know, and on the question of Sudan is we are very keen on what's happening to our brother and sister.
Yeah.
And nobody was expecting this will happen one day. And we pray Allah Almighty
Of course.
to come and help our brothers and sisters in Sudan. But as Noor said, Djibouti is one of the 3 presidents that has been assigned to go to Sudan to speak both sides, to come to the table of negotiation table, and to look for the interest of the people of the country, and just forget this small misunderstanding that is going on between them.
Yeah.
So it's really a great honor for my president and for my country to be among those 3 presidents. And we hope that the results will come within IGAD's members, because we know how to solve our own problem, and we will get our own solution.
Yeah.
So Djibouti is at the front line of to get a solution for what's happening to Sudan, and especially tomorrow the debate will be very intense, and the leaders will be really exchanging point of views, and I'm sure that they will come up with a very good communique, which is telling straightforward what are the steps to be followed in the recent days to come. And hopefully we believe and we hope that our Sudanese brothers and sisters will listen to their brothers and sisters of the region, especially IGAD region, to reach an agreement and to bring back Sudan on the right track, which is the development, the peaceful, the economic integration, and that's the issue it should be. And we pray Almighty Allah to accept our blessings, and we hope one day we will go back to Sudan as we used to. And I think with this summit, I believe that with this summit will bring very good and positive results. Thank you very much.
Just to add on to what Ambassador has said, and Ambassador is very right. The region has to own its solutions.
Yeah.
Because we understand the problem of the region, and the summit, the extraordinary summit of the 16th of April this year made it very clear that the Sudan people are capable of finding solution to their problems. So there shouldn't be external interference. What IGAD is doing is just facilitating. And what the president here and the leaders have done is, to invite now the Deputy Chairperson of the Sovereign Council is here, His Excellency Malik Agar. The 3 presidents who've been assigned this role are here. So, as Ambassador said, we are doing all that we could to make sure that, the parties reach an understanding, an agreement in the best interest of the people of Sudan. What the leadership of the region is doing is showing solidarity with the people of Sudan and the region. And already, as I earlier alluded, Djibouti was the first country to open its airspace for citizens who are trapped, foreign citizens who are trapped in that country to be evacuated, and this has to be recognized that the region has played its role already. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our beloved guests. There you have it, our beloved viewers. IGAD is here so that we solve our region's problems on our own. As we approach the end of the discussion, I would like to thank both of our esteemed guests, Mr. Noor and Ambassador Gelle, for their valuable insights and perspectives on IGAD's role in the region. Your expertise, both of you, has provided us with a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities faced by IGAD and its member states. And we hopefully look forward to witnessing the outcomes of the IGAD summit and the positive impact it will most assuredly have on the Horn of Africa. This was it for our insightful discussion here today, our beloved viewers. Thank you all for joining us today. I was your host, Dini Musa. Take care.